I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of the Top 10 of the 2010s. And this week we're dedicating a whole episode to the best documentary of the decade, according to myself, Connor Old, which is Minding the Gap.
I just don't want him to grow up like me. I just want to hide. I just want to run away. That's what the drinking is about.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to just move on.
I wish you could. I wish that I can do over.
I could seriously be on the verge of having a mental breakdown, but as long as I'm able to go skate, I'm completely fine.
But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is I look at some of the best films of the decade. Essentially, every 3 weeks I introduce a new genre and give my top 10 list of what I think are the best documentaries or romance films or action-adventure movies of the decade. So we're finishing up the documentary. That means next week's going to be a new genre, which is going to be comedy. So I'm going to give my 10 to 7 picks, then my 6 to 2 the next week, and then finally a full episode on my favorite comedy, and so on and so forth, and we'll continue to go on. I hope you guys are enjoying the series. I've been enjoying really doing a deep dive on and rewatching a lot of my favorite movies from this decade and really getting a good understanding of it, and finding some unique gems and some interesting movies that I hope you also love as well. So let me know in your comments below what have been some of your favorite documentaries of the decade. But Minding the Gap is about 3 skateboarders, one of which is director Bing Liu, their friendship and the reasons why they skate, as we discover later on in the film, and how that evolves. This film explores household violence, the state of America, a town left behind, reliving our past, skateboarding, what it means to be black, the impact our parents have on us, the purity of childhood, what it means to be a man. So many of these themes, and in some ways it's hard to sort of think and recommend to some people because they hear that and that's a really daunting statement, and they go, oh, I don't want this to be preachy or anything like that, and I don't want to really be sort of, some people get turned off by a Michael Moore documentary or politics issues or documentary. And while this has sort of, I guess you would maybe call it not a political agenda, but definitely confronts either some political issues or just sort of some social dynamics that are happening on America, the genius of the movie and what it does really well is how it sort of approaches that Bing Liu is a friend of the subjects and the skateboards we find here. And he also projects himself into the documentary. So as much as he is asking these questions, he is putting himself in there and doing a really interesting self-reflexive sort of examination of himself. And that's what makes it special. It confronts these topics head on, and it asks the right questions, and it has these discussions, but in a really sort of brilliant and subtle way, how it sort of transfers from one topic to the next, because it just feels like a series of deep conversations you may have with one of your friends, where you're not trying to be very politically correct, maybe you're just trying to air things in the open, you're thinking out loud. And when Bing Liu, he just asks these questions sort of nonchalantly from behind the camera, and we know that he has a friendship with these guys, so there's sort of a personal connection there. He's able to get real honesty and emotional answers, and honesty in terms of, I'm confused, I don't know what the right answer is, or I'm scared and this is what I'm feeling, and just being able to talk about their emotions. And then that leads into different topics in different ways, with the link being skateboarding and why they skateboard. But that's where they found each other. But then we start to reveal, try to understand why do these guys go away from their homes all the time and wanted to be out all the time, what was with their families and their family environment. And it even occurs in such a great way it almost feels written, because one of the skateboarders, Zach, is becoming a parent himself. So now we start to explore the ideas of the cyclical nature of domestic violence, which I guess is the main theme, but that doesn't stop them from having these different conversations, just as friends would, but maybe more of the serious things, and trying to be really honest with the emotions and what they're feeling. And for me, unlike maybe some other genres, this documentary is far and above my number 2 pick, because in a movie like Senna, which is this really intimate character piece that really looks at a person in a historical fashion, it's really great for that. But another movie like Dawson City, Frozen Time, it looks at a place and really discovers that. But what's great about Minding the Gap is it's a great character piece and it's very intimate, but it's not only one person, it's 3 people, so that it's so much accelerated there. And then also it's about a place, it's about Rockford, Illinois. and how the job sort of left and sort of the people that are there, and unemployment being incredibly high, and sort of just wanting to get out but still feeling like Rockford is still your home, and not wanting to leave your family. So that's one big reason why I'm so connected to the film, is how it sort of confronts a lot of these topics in a very naturalistic and a very honest way, and gets incredible sort of, we can say, intellectual discussions you have within what it means to be these certain things, or why these domestic violence things occur. But then also we see the people, and because it's intimate, because we're really relating to these characters, it becomes incredibly emotional. And that's the impactful fact of it for me, that it's not just like this politics documentary. It's you really care for these guys, and you want to know, what's their situation like, and what are they doing bad, if they're doing bad things, why, and sort of getting down to the bottom of it, and seeing them just trying to become better people, and being put on with these sort of adult ideas maybe a little bit too soon, and them trying to navigate that. But the film also succeeds just through what Bing Liu is able to do. I think he makes skateboarding very cinematic. I think skateboarding itself is very cinematic, but there's a shot in 20th Century Woman where there's just a skateboard and he's going down the hill, and we're sort of tracking and going down with him, and it's intercut with a couple things, and Bing sort of is able to capture that, this using modern technology to just skate with them and be on a skateboard and have sort of a steady handheld cam, and go through and watch them glide down the streets. It's really beautiful and cinematic, especially when we get sort of the music and some of the intercutting montages. It creates this beautiful sequence of events. And also what Bing is able to do in terms of the editing, in terms of how he has such a distinct visual style that he's able to almost link scenes where we'll be seeing an interview, and then the next shot will be of a hallway, and now we're in someone else's house, and we don't realize that we're in someone else's house because it's so seamless, because that's sort of just the rhythm and the nature and the lyrical kind of flow of the film. It's so precise and perfect that, because it's going through multiple time periods and different places and different people, but because of sort of the distinct visual style and the sort of ease of editing and transitions that Bing is able to do, especially on rewatches, I've really noticed his control of the craft within the documentary. But as I was writing this video, I was trying to discover why I think this is the best documentary of the decade, and what about it being a documentary makes it so much more impactful than it were a written film. And I think what I came to, and what I connect to ultimately, maybe with documentaries in general, is the honesty, the realism, and the intimacy that you can achieve through documentary, purely based on the fact that it is real. That is a documentation of real people, and that it is not written. As much as we can sort of feel the intimate moments of a movie like Carol, there is still something in the back of your mind where it is written, and this is sort of created and fabricated. Where the genius and what I appreciate of documentaries is that you have to be able to pull these things out of people, that when you're interviewing them, that's totally a skill to try to get people to say certain things, and then putting them in certain parts of the movie, or trying to explain these things, or even how Bing uses montages to link time and people. And sometimes when we get a fascinating true crime story, I don't mind being manipulated, and I know that it's a movie and I'm not trying to expect a news piece, but I'm expected to be entertained or to be interested and to be engaged. But even Bing in this documentary is so trying to, in my opinion, get to the heart of these at least discovering some of these issues, or talking and trying to be an emotional honesty and find out an emotional truth within the movie, so much so that he mentions sort of the manipulation of the documentary format early on in the film, where we show a lot of the skate videos back in the day, and then when the main character Kier says, "Wow, you make it look like we have such great lives," and then the rest of the film tries to uncover the truth, tries to get rid of the gloss and the allure, and actually get behind, they're having a great time skateboarding, and when they cut it all together, it looks like this awesome time, and they have these great vibes. But let's go back to their homes, let's go back to their jobs, their futures, what they're struggling with. So in a way, Bing acknowledges the manipulation, and then does all he can to try to get to a real emotional honesty, which is what this documentary, I think, being brave enough to confront these issues head on, and really tries to get at a next level that some documentaries just aren't that interested in. And speaking of sort of that true crime documentary, a lot of that and the success of that is because it uses other filmmaking techniques. It uses thriller techniques and Hitchcock techniques and suspense to make you feel one thing, or limiting one information. Now, Hitchcock just writes it that way, where you don't learn certain information until the second or third act, which is the last act reveal. But the documentary has all that information, but is only giving you select information to make it work for their sort of narrative, we'll call it. So it's still using these traditional film techniques, but what I appreciate about this documentary is that it is using the documentary form to try to separate the wall between the viewer and the audience, not to tell a story, but to tell an experience and to capture this moment and to confront these issues which you can confront in a normal movie, but with an honesty and with a truth and with an actual self-discovery, because Bing is actually trying to get them to say certain things. This is all, but it's also pure and it's organic and it's what these people actually think. It's not what has been written to really express a theme perfectly. It is messy and it doesn't maybe make a lot of sense, but that's what a lot of the confusion is. And even relating now to the topic of being in your 20s, sort of that confusion of not knowing what you want to do for the rest of your life, confronting with your upbringing, and now that you're away from them, how you sort of cope with that and how you sort of process that. And humans are complex, and sometimes they say profound things. And I think when a documentary can capture those profound things, while also keeping an emotional honesty and a vulnerability that a written film, that a narrative film can't, it succeeds because it is a documentary. And it works because of that. And I think Minding the Gap fits that box because of its intimacy, because of its vulnerability, and because its ease of which it's able to touch all these different topics in a non-pretentious, in a honest kind of a way. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments your favorite documentary of the decade and your thoughts on Minding the Gap. Have you seen it? It's on Hulu. It came out a couple of years ago, but I was totally entranced by it, and I have seen it a few times since, and I really enjoyed it on every rewatch. So I hope you guys check it out. Stay tuned to next week, where I'm going to be talking about comedy. So subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification. The videos come out every Monday at 12 o'clock. So always stay tuned for that time schedule. I've been really keeping strict to that. And that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.